Hi, welcome to the Red Zone. This morning we're here going to take a look at the portable egg laying station made by Red Zone. This is a unique unit, our latest invention, if you will. This system is put onto a rolling cart. You can see it's on wheels. It's very heavy, but it can be moved around within your hatchery even after it's loaded. There are several components to it. First, underneath we have the chiller, and over on that side is a reservoir. The flow pattern of the water is to be pumped from the reservoir through the chiller and up through the plumbing to the back of the 3 incubators. Each of the incubators is supplied with a 1/2-inch supply line, and they're running about 5 gallons a minute through each one. On this side we have, in addition to the 5 gallons a minute, about 15 gallons a minute going through the system, we have a bypass line here that runs approximately another 5 gallons a minute. So our aquarium pump that runs the system runs at a continuous 20 gallons a minute. And we simply can control how much of that goes through the incubators by opening or closing the bypass valve. This is the effluent line on each one. It goes down and comes down and goes through this spray bar that sprays the water back into the water in the reservoir. And what this accomplishes is to drive out any accumulated CO2 from the metabolism of the eggs. It also picks up atmospheric oxygen, puts it back into the water, so you constantly have a high oxygen environment for your eggs. There's a second bypass. You can see the smaller plumbing down here at the bottom of each incubator. It comes down and goes through this little bypass. You can see the water is running. It's not an awful lot amount, but it's critical for safety concerns that I'll describe later. This system affords itself also to treating the eggs with salt. You simply dump the requisite amount of rock salt in the reservoir and let it dissolve and circulate through the eggs for an hour, and then when that is done, you simply take the bypass out and let it run on the ground. You leave that running on the ground or into your drain for about 10 minutes, and you've essentially eliminated all that saline water that was in the system and replaced it with fresh water. And you replace it through this automatic refill system that's connected to your hatchery water supply through a garden hose connection. And inside of the reservoir is a float switch. It will refill the reservoir until that float switch shuts it off. So anytime you drain water out, which you might want to do once a day to refresh the system, it will automatically replace that water with fresh water. We may want to take a look on the other end of the system. It's operated by a 110 volt system. There's a switch for the pump and a switch for the chiller. Right now this unit has been running for about an hour. When I arrived here, the water temperature was 62 degrees. And we're going to see now that the chiller is set at 49. It'll bottom out very close to 49 degrees. The chiller will come on and off and maintain that temperature within a 1/2 degree centigrade. So you can use this to eye up your eggs. With a chiller on it, you can slow them down or modulate their development. You have an option of putting a heater on that, so if you want to accelerate the development of the eggs, you can raise the water. If you have very cold water, you may want to raise the temperature, so we can provide that. And in some situations where a hatchery has a high load of fungal spores, we can put in a 15-watt UV unit that every time the water recycles, it's UV treated. So anytime you add new water to the system, If it has a high load of fungal spores, that UV unit will kill them before it makes it into the egg. The last and most interesting feature to this is a safety feature. If for some reason you lost power in your hatchery, or the pump failed and the system went down, you don't want your eggs sitting in essentially non-moving water. So I'm going to turn the pump off, and then you watch what happens. Now, it's gone into a siphon mode. It's siphoning the water back down into the reservoir, and then the overflow is taking the water out onto your drain system. If you look up here, you can see the water is gradually going down. It'll only take about 2 or 2.5 minutes to drain completely down through the egg mass. So now you've got moist eggs sitting there waiting for you to respond to whatever the emergency was. When the power comes back on, your pump will come on. It'll start recycling the system. Your automatic refill will put the water back into the system, and it might have happened in the middle of the night when you weren't even there. It self-drains and then it self-refills, and you haven't lost any of your eggs. Now the reason there's this second bypass is that's below the pressure plate in the incubator box. So as the water gets down to the pressure plate, it'll continue to drain, but it'll drain into the reservoir, and the reservoir will not, the pump will not come on as long as that reservoir is filled, and it'll only go down to the bottom of the overflow. It'll never get low enough for the automatic refill to come on until the pump starts up again, and usually by then you're already there attending to whatever the emergency was. Well, thank you for coming and visiting us at the red zone. Be careful when you're in the red zone.